Okay.
Pull it out a little further so the microphone's not getting infected by the cloth.
All right. We're good to go.
Yep.
Ready? Peace. What is up, everybody? I am Oneno. Thank you for tuning into this video today. Today is an awesome video. I got my dad here to interview, if you can't tell.
Your dad? I've never seen you before in my life.
I know. Well, trust me, we get twins all the time,
That's right.
so I don't think we're ever going to be able to
I'm
do
not your
that.
dad, I'm your older brother.
Yeah. Well, considering that everybody thinks you're about 5 years older than me, I think we could be brothers.
That's my story, I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. He's ancient. Don't let him convince you otherwise. Okay, so today, the reason that we're making this video is we've obviously been father and son my whole life. And most of you don't know this, but my dad is a gay man. He came out of the closet about 5 years ago.
7
years ago. And we have gone through the ringer with each other, but in the best way possible. And a lot of change has happened between the two of us. And I thought it would be really beneficial for the internet, for you to have a fly on the wall perspective of a conversation between father and son and the whole coming out process and everything that we've been through with each other throughout that whole thing.
Yep.
And we have changed. I've changed so much. You've changed so much. We have built an entirely new relationship with each other. And I think it's something that people can really benefit from. So the whole goal of this conversation, we're going to talk for about an hour, and we just want to share with you some of the processes that we've been through together and collectively.
It was really tough.
Yeah.
But I love the end result and where we are now.
Absolutely.
So
I feel like now we have much more clear communication with each other
oh, absolutely.
than we did at any other point in my life.
I'm much better at communicating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we have a couple questions. We're just going to get into an open dialogue. So grab a cup of coffee, listen along with us, and let's just get into it.
okay.
So first thing I want to chat with you about is what was one of the most difficult parts for you to come out? Not necessarily just in relationship to me, but just in general. What was one of the most difficult things for you?
I think the most difficult thing for me was having been in the closet for so long, I wasn't sure I could come out. And I knew it would entail a lot of loss, but it was just a really scary thought.
Yeah.
So,
And what was some of the first things that you lost?
well, in the moment I came out, I literally lost my life.
Yeah.
My best friend walked away from me. My circle of friends abandoned me. My best friend had sent a number of students to me. He called and had all of those students resign that day.
Yeah.
So within 4 hours of coming out, I lost my entire resume, my reputation, all of my relationships, except my kids, all of my life's work, and about 80% of my income.
So
all in one day.
Needless to say, your entire identity had been removed.
Not only my identity, but also my support system.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So just for people that are brand new to both you and I, my dad is a reverend. He's a pastor.
Yep.
Still is a reverend and a pastor,
Yep.
in my view, even if you're not practicing in a church. And also an amazing musician. Everything that I've done in my career is a direct result from you. All my touring with Rihanna and Adam Lambert and Miguel and all these people I've been able to work with has come from your musicianship transferring onto me. So he's an amazing musician and an amazing spiritual communicator, and that's what he lost. That's what you lost throughout that process.
All of that.
Yep.
All
And
of
you had
that.
to reinvent your musical circle, you had to reinvent your spiritual circle, and your social circles of
Yeah.
all kinds.
One of the most difficult things, I am a trained theologian. I have a master's of theology, a master's of divinity. And one of the most difficult things about coming out was understanding how to integrate my gay with my faith. To begin with, I didn't even know if it could be done.
Right.
It took me between 3 and 4 years to really get that untangled and be comfortable with it.
Well, because there's so much fear around that whole subject.
Yeah.
And there's so many fundamentalists that jump onto the fear bandwagon
Right.
and chastise people like yourself,
Yeah.
you know? Whereas my belief that you've handed me through Christianity, and for those of you that follow my channel, you know I've grown up and out of Christianity. I still have my foundation based on the message of Christ, but I've seen that the church has a beautiful and confusing way of boxing in what Christ was really speaking about. And there's fear that gets thrown around it. And in my opinion, if the Christian church cannot accept you for who you are, they have no business talking about the message of Christ, in my opinion.
Okay.
Humbly speaking.
Yeah.
Let's jump to one.
Before we leave that,
Yeah.
one of the key concepts for me was when I realized that you hear about reparative therapy and
The whole pray the gay away thing.
pray the gay away. And that's built on the premise that sexuality is changeable. And it didn't matter what conversation I was in, eventually the discussion came down to, can you change your sexuality? The American Psychological Association decided way back in the late 70s that it wasn't possible. And they stopped researching it because they considered it to be decisively, the conversation was ended.
Yeah.
The question was answered. And what I've discovered is that the church holds on to a changeable sexuality because they have to protect God.
Right.
If God made me this way and I can't change it and I'm doomed to hell as a result, then God's a pernicious God. If
I'll add on
it
to
is
that too.
changeable, then they have to, and so they have to argue that it's changeable.
Yeah.
If God is going to be a fair God and he created me gay, then sexuality must be changeable. Otherwise, he's an evil God. In order to admit that sexuality is not changeable, the church has to be able to also admit that their understanding of what the Bible says about homosexuality has been flawed. And that puts them in a double bind.
And I'll add on to that by saying I think that the church has just quite simply confused sexuality from the get-go. Because sexuality, as far as my youth and upbringing coming up in the church and being taught Christian theology from the beginning,
Right.
it was all taught with sex is a evil act unless you're, or an unpure act, maybe is a better way of saying
Right.
it, unless you're in the confines of marriage.
Right.
And what that has done to me as a straight man, the psychology of that has even led me to repress my own sexuality. Again, my natural God-given sexuality.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. If God did not want me to be a sexual being, I would not have sexual parts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
If I was
Good
not
point.
supposed to breathe oxygen, I wouldn't have lungs.
Right.
So I don't believe that sexuality at its fundamental level is impure.
Right.
Now, can you use sexuality for harm?
Of course.
Absolutely, but
Of
there
course.
is only one law in existence, as we know,
Right.
which is do no harm. It's the
Right.
golden rule.
Right.
So outside of that, we are built in perfect harmony. And so if you're built the way that you are, what gives the church the right to tell you that God has made a mistake?
And that's the point at which everything changed for me. Because for 43 years, I tried to pray away the gay. And I remember the day when I was just frustrated And I said, God, I've been praying this prayer for 43 years. Why haven't you answered? I've been able to change my behavior. I acted and lived in a faithful marriage with my behavior as a straight man.
Yeah.
But it didn't change what was in my head. It didn't change what I was attracted to. And so I said, God, why haven't you answered this prayer? And it was clear as a bell. He said, get a clue. I did answer it. I've been answering it for 43 years. I made you this way, and I like you this way. I did not make a mistake. Get over it and get on with your life. And that was the beginning. That was the pivot point, the tipping point in my coming out process.
So then, to flip this on its head, let's go back to the part of your life where you went into the closet.
Oh my!
Let's talk about.
Now we're talking ancient history.
Right.
Yeah.
Ago. I want to know for you, what was it like in that moment? Because as far as I remember, you were around 19 is the period that I'm talking about here.
21.
Around 20, yeah. And I want to know what it was like for you in your direct experience, as well as what was going on socially as of that point in time. And just what were the elements that made you feel like you could not accept this part of you?
Many of my friends in the gay community here at Portland have asked me, why in the world did I stay in the closet that long? And part of the answer is, when it was that I looked at myself in the mirror and said, dude, you're gay. And that happened in college. And for me, college was, this was ancient history. Not quite as far back as the Stonewall riots, but it was pre-Harvey Milk.
Right.
And in fact, seeing the Harvey Milk film really helped me understand why I had been in the closet so deep for so long. Because Harvey Milk and his assassination, the time period of the Harvey Milk film was about 3 years after I got married to your mother.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, there was no discussion about coming out. It was, you're gay? Fine. Get married, find a nice girl. Well, other way around. Find a nice girl, get married, have kids, and it'll all go away.
It's kind of that typical nuclear family.
Right, right. And so that's what we did. And Carol knew that I had been wrestling with homosexuality, and we just decided we were going to fight it together. And so we got married, and it was watching the Harvey Milk film that helped me understand how I got there to begin with. Because Harvey Milk was in San Francisco, which even at that time was the mecca for gay culture. And yet he was assassinated in his office for being a gay man. The culture was pretty hostile.
Oh yeah.
Much more hostile than it is now.
Yeah, a lot of fear, a lot of hatred.
So that was the culture I grew up in, and staying and getting into the closet seemed like the only reasonable alternative.
And also your passions for music kind of dovetailed into your getting involved with the church then, and trying to live this correct life then of...
And I was tortured. I didn't want to be gay. I had been told it was wrong.
Right.
I desperately wanted out, and the church were... Ironically, I went to the church so they would pray away the gay, and yet I was afraid to tell anybody I was even struggling.
Yeah, of course.
And the whole term, struggling with homosexuality, is just, even that language is wrong.
Maybe you were struggling with heterosexuality.
That's exactly what it was. One of the things that I said to my new friends, especially my new straight friends, is that I find the word homosexual offensive. I am a man with a sexual orientation that is focused on other men. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But that is just the smallest piece of my life. And to have that word sex be at the middle of how you identify me is so wrong.
Yeah, because then people become focused on your sexual preference, but who you are has much more to do than with just sex.
Yep.
And yeah, I perceive you as having way more sides than just who you're attracted to.
Right. And I love the word gay. Interestingly enough, I love the word queer, which...
It doesn't offend you?
Not at all.
Even if a straight person says it?
Even if a straight person says it. That's different than faggot.
True.
Okay? But to me, queer is an accurate translation of the verse in Leviticus that says, if a man sleeps with another man, it's an abomination. Abomination does not mean in the Hebrew what it means in English. Abomination is a word that means essentially out of the ordinary. And what does queer mean? It means out of the ordinary. And what does that mean in American society? The numbers vary from 3% in some areas of the country to 10 or 15% of the population being gay. We're out of the ordinary. That means we're queer.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's an accurate and truthful definition of who I am.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, let's jump to another question over here. Let's maybe wrap up this exact point that we're on with the question, can you be Christian and be gay?